What happens when politics stops being about policies and becomes all about feelings? What if fear, outrage, and identity replace facts and reason? And what if this isn't a glitch in democracy, but the strategy itself? Long before social media, fake news, and viral speeches, one man warned that leaders would rise by manipulating the public, not through virtue, but through fear and illusion. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. In today's video, we're asking, how did Machiavelli predict the rise of emotional, populist politics? And how do modern rulers exploit fear to gain and maintain power? We'll break down the Machiavellian model of leadership, look at the psychology behind fear-based politics, and explore whether today's populists are simply new versions of the prince, armed not with swords, but with hashtags and headlines. But first, a quick note about this channel. Welcome to Unfolding Journey, where we dive deep into the ideas that shape history, politics, and modern life. From ancient philosophy to current events, from leadership to ethics, we explore how old truths keep unfolding in new ways. If you're curious about how thinkers like Machiavelli, Plato, or Rousseau can help us make sense of today's world, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince in the early 1500s, not as a moral guidebook, but as a brutal how-to manual for political survival. He argued that rulers should prioritize power and stability, not virtue or popularity. At the heart of Machiavelli's philosophy lies one key idea. People are more easily ruled by fear than by love. Why? Because fear is predictable. Love is fickle. When fear is present, people obey. When love fades, loyalty vanishes. Machiavelli famously advised rulers to appear virtuous, even if they are not. Public image is critical. But when it comes to decision-making, ruler must be willing to lie, betray, or manipulate if it serves the survival of the state. He introduces the image of the ideal leader as both lion and fox, strong and bold like a lion, but cunning and deceptive like a fox. The balance between these traits defines successful leadership. Machiavelli also introduces a tension between virtù, a ruler's skill and decisiveness, and fortuna, luck or fate. In unstable times, the best leader sees fortune through bold, sometimes ruthless action. But what's most chillingly relevant today is this. Machiavelli knew that human nature is emotional, not rational. People respond to stories, symbols, and spectacle more than to policy or principle. And if a leader can control the emotional temperature of the public, they can control the people themselves. In the 21st century, populist leaders have embraced this Machiavellian logic with alarming precision. Across continents and political systems, they use emotion over evidence, division over dialogue, and fear over fact to rise and rule. But what is populism, really? At its core, populism claims to speak for the people against the elites. It paints politics as a struggle between a righteous, pure group and a corrupt, out-of-touch enemy. This us versus them narrative is emotionally powerful and politically useful. Now add fear into the mix. Populist leaders often identify external enemies: immigrants, foreign powers, corporations, or internal threats, opposition parties, journalists, minorities, to create a sense of urgency and danger. Then they position themselves as the only savior, the only one who understands and will protect the people. This strategy activates primal instincts. When people feel threatened, they seek strength, not nuance. In fear, we trade freedom for protection, complexity for clarity, and dialogue for obedience. Machiavelli would understand this perfectly. He advised rulers to maintain power not through constant violence, but through calculated fear, aimed at securing control without provoking rebellion. Populists also master the art of performance, using dramatic gestures, inflammatory speeches, and emotional appeals to bypass logic. Whether it's televised rallies or Twitter tirades, their power thrives in the emotional and symbolic realm. Interestingly, many of these leaders craft an image of authenticity, despite frequent lies or contradictions. This is classic Machiavelli. Truth is less important than the appearance of conviction. They appear anti-elite, while benefiting from elite systems. They promise to drain the swamp while swimming in it. But for their supporters, it's not about consistency, it's about connection. Ultimately, populism succeeds not by offering complex solutions, but by channeling raw emotions: fear, anger, pride, resentment, hope. And in doing so, it mirrors the Machiavellian strategy. Understand what people feel, then use it to rule. Fear is one of the oldest tools in the ruler's arsenal, and one of the most effective. Machiavelli didn't invent it, but he legitimized its political use. In The Prince, he argues that fear can be useful in maintaining control, especially when a population is restless or divided. But how does fear work in today's world? In modern politics, fear isn't just about soldiers or police. It's about narratives, about threats to identity, culture, safety, or sovereignty. Leaders amplify these fears through repetition, symbols, and media. A terrorist attack becomes proof of cultural invasion. Economic anxiety becomes fuel for nationalism. Disease becomes a political weapon. Even the act of questioning power is painted as betrayal. This leads to the rise of emotional echo chambers. Through social media and partisan media networks, people hear their fears confirmed, their enemies demonized, and their leader glorified. The result: fear becomes identity. And once fear becomes identity, it's almost impossible to challenge. Facts no longer matter. Reason is dismissed. The leader who exploits fear becomes not just a politician, but a savior figure. Machiavelli might warn, this is dangerous even for the ruler. When fear spirals out of control, it can consume the very stability it was meant to preserve. A ruler who governs solely through fear may find themselves trapped, forced to escalate or face revolt. That's why Machiavelli emphasized controlled fear, not chaos. In today's populist movements, that balance is often lost. Leaders go too far. Societies polarize. Institutions weaken. And yet, the Machiavellian insight holds. Fear remains one of the most reliable instruments of power. Modern populism doesn't just exploit fear. It weaponizes emotion in all its forms: pride, anger, nostalgia, resentment. Crowds are emotional beings. They're more likely to respond to a compelling story than to data, more likely to cheer a slogan than read a policy platform. Machiavelli understood that the public doesn't always want the truth. They want reassurance, certainty, and clarity. And in unstable times, a leader who simplifies the world into good and evil, us versus them, gains a massive advantage. Populist leaders often tie their own identity to the nation's. Criticism of the leader becomes criticism of the country. Loyalty to the leader becomes a test of patriotism. This emotional fusion creates a loyal base that is not just politically aligned, but personally invested. This is why scandals often fail to sink such leaders. Their followers see them not just as politicians, but as representations of their own values, struggles, and identity. It's not Machiavelli's cold realism alone at work here. It's a deeper, more emotional alchemy, one that blends manipulation with meaning. And once that spell is cast, breaking it requires more than logic. It requires rebuilding trust, shared truth, and collective purpose. So, was Machiavelli right? In many ways, yes. His insights into fear, emotion, and power continue to play out in our politics today. Modern populist leaders follow the same patterns. Identify enemies, exploit fear, craft emotion-based identities, and maintain control through performance more than policy. And yet, we are not doomed to repeat history. Machiavelli described the game, but we choose whether to play it. Awareness is power. When we understand how fear is used, how emotions are shaped, how narratives are crafted, we become harder to manipulate. We become more than spectators in the political arena. We become citizens. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in corrupting politics, it was in exposing it. The question now is, do we let the prince become prophecy, or do we write a new script? Thank you for watching Unfolding Journey. If this exploration of Machiavelli and populism made you think, or challenged how you see today's politics, give this video a thumbs up, share it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We've got more deep dives coming on leadership, ethics, and the forces shaping our world. Got thoughts on who the most Machiavellian leader today is? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and stay questioning.